So hopefully that gives you some idea of what Power Metal is all about and what we're hoping to achieve. So if I get into the presentation, I'm Sean Wade, CEO of Power Metal Resources, and we're proud to represent not just Power Metal, but I think proud to represent the United Kingdom, actually, as the only London-listed company here at the presentation. Thank you very much. Here's a very short piece of corporate information, and just to underline the point that we're listed in London on the AIM market. We have a market cap of, it's a little more than that now. Actually, I'm pleased to say we've had some good interest in this week, and so the shares have gone up a little bit, but we're at 0.75 of a penny at the moment, so we're trading above our 52-week low. You can see some of our board directors there. It's a very experienced group with a great blend of experience, both in terms of geology and finance. And I myself am from a finance background, having advised mining companies over many years to help them get financed and to how to present their investment case. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do this afternoon. Now, here's obviously a very familiar face to all of us, and somebody to whom we owe a great debt of thanks for the presentations and the hospitality we've had this week. And this is a quote from Rick from the YouTube interview that we did together prior to the conference. And I think this is actually quite an important point because, you know, we're not a mining company. We're not an investment fund either. We are what we would describe as a project incubator, a prospect generator, if you will. But Rick likes to think of us as a mining merchant bank, and what that means, and I'll go forward to describe them all a little bit more in detail, but it means that we're an active investor in the mining sector, and I'll go through the business model and show you how that works. But I know this is a model that Mr. Rule has made a lot of money in the past, and it's something that we're very, very proud to be part of this group of companies. So what is it that we do? We have three core pillars to the business. We explore, we develop, and we crystallize. Exploration phase means we acquire projects. We've got a very good team of geologists who know what they're looking for, and we conduct what I would describe as methodical and cost-effective exploration. Now, in practice, that typically tends to mean geophysical surveys, airborne magnetics, for example, soil sampling, seeking to establish highly prospective drill targets. So that's how we are, in the first phase, adding value to our projects and investments. We then seek to develop those. So these companies, we've established now that we've got a great project that's highly prospective, but what's the right capital structure to put in place? We need partner relationships. That can mean strategic joint venture partners. That can mean various things. It can mean, obviously, minority shareholders, or we could be a minority shareholder with somebody else who owns the project. But we've got to get that right. We've got to get those relationships right so that we can add the most value. And then how do we actually add that value? Well, we crystallize it through variously an outright disposal. We vend out the assets into IPO vehicles, or we look for major strategic partner earnings and seek to maintain participation in the projects going forward. And you can see there below some of the brand names, if you like, the company names of our assets. Now, one I want to highlight there is Golden Metal Resources. This is an IPO that we did back in May. It's and Oliver, my colleague, is here who runs that business for us as CEO. It's an extremely prospective tungsten, gold, and other metals focused around Nevada. It's a Nevada-focused business with highly critical, as I mentioned, tungsten asset, and it's been extremely popular, and it's driving fantastic value at the moment for us. We're about a 60% shareholder in it, having spun it out earlier in the year, and it's a good example of our model in action. You'll see uranium energy exploration there. That's a small spin-out IPO which is underway, which we're going to talk a bit more about. And First Development Resources on the far right of your screen is a great collection of assets in Australia, which is an IPO we are currently undertaking. So these are lithium, rare earths, uranium, and some gold in Western Australia and the Northern Territory. And this is a drill-ready project, and it's ready to go. We're in the process of raising money for that at the moment. So, and Tristan Pottis, who runs that for us, again, is an excellent and inspirational CEO, and he's going to get that across the line for us very soon. So what these will do for our investors is make a very big difference to enhance the balance sheets. And I'm going to talk a bit about how that works and give you some numbers on that a little bit later on. Where are we based? We like to think of ourselves as having a broad but safe geographic spread. So you can see some indications of our assets in North America. When you look at Africa, you can see there Botswana and Tanzania, Australia, as I mentioned, and Saudi Arabia, which we'll talk a bit more about in a moment, which is a new part of our business and something we're very excited about. Again, just showing an illustration there of the jurisdictions that they're in and the safety of those jurisdictions. And you'll see, Nevada, where I mentioned, Western Australia, Saskatchewan, these are all very, very safe and reliable jurisdictions. The commodities, pretty much on the whole, are the things the world needs. I mean, we've got critical minerals of 7 of those 10s, but, copper, as I'm sure we'll all agree, if not officially designated a critical mineral, certainly something that it's under supply risk. And I know we've been hearing a lot about that in the main ballroom this week. So I think, we're in the right geographies and we're in the right commodities. So, what I'm trying to do for shareholders is to give you a maximum return, but with a minimum of risk. And I think, we can demonstrate that here. Now, I wanted to pull out just a couple of things because, we only have a short amount of time and we've got a big portfolio. So I just wanted to give you a really bit of a taste of what we're doing. And the uranium portfolio, I think, is really worth highlighting. So 17 properties in and around the Athabasca Basin, which I think most of us, will be familiar with and would recognize as the world's premier destination for uranium exploration. We 100% owned all of these projects. They're not encumbered in any way. There are no royalties. They all belong to us, and it's over 1,000 square kilometre footprint. So this is a huge portfolio, and by far the biggest in London. Now, what are we going to do with this? Well, first of all, we've got some exploration underway. And as I mentioned at the top, we talk about the early stage, methodical and low-cost exploration. That's what we're doing here. So we're doing soil sampling, and we're doing airborne surveys, and we're on hand, incidentally, obviously we're here all week to talk in more detail about that for anybody who's interested. That exploration program is underway, and what that's going to do will be to establish highly prospective drill targets, which will then look forward to the next phase of the exploration, which is where we will start talking about joint venture relationships and so on. But what we are doing currently is a small spin-out IPO. We're going to take just a few of the properties, we're going to spin those into a separate vehicle. It will give our investors the opportunity for pure play exposure to uranium exploration, but it will also give a price discovery mechanism for people to look at the portfolio as a whole. And we can talk a bit more about how that's constructed later, but this is essentially this is the picture of what we've got. And inside the basin, obviously, it's historically been highly prospective and very successful. More and more of the exploration now is starting to move outside the basin, and we've got a great advantage there. Now, I mentioned Saudi Arabia. We're looking at Saudi Arabia and Oman, and what that means is essentially the Arabian Shield geographic trend. So this is a vastly underexplored mineralized system, which, people will know, obviously, Saudi Arabia is being extremely well endowed with petrochemicals, but I think less well known is the huge mineral prospectivity in the region. And I caught a talk this morning about Saudi Arabia and its strategic importance and in relation to decarbonisation and its sort of place in the world economy. And we're looking here for early mover advantage to get into the country, get some exploration licenses, to get some local partners to help us develop those projects, and to really, we think we can build a very, very powerful set of assets in Saudi, which I think over time. And if we're aligned, as we put on this slide, with the Kingdom's 2030 vision, I think this is an opportunity to add an enormous amount of value over time. And again, if you come and visit us at the booth, we can talk more about that. So in terms of the business overview, as I said, there's a lot in the portfolio that we can go through, but this gives you some taste of Athabasca, which I mentioned. Malopo Farms is potentially, as a district scale, as we like to call it, nickel discovery. We've done a lot of work here. We've spent quite a lot of money on it. We are absolutely convinced we've got a proven geological model. and potentially a world-class nickel asset. Now, we need to spend a bit more money. And what I want to get across to people is that this is something that I don't really want our shareholders to have to pay for. We don't want to have to sort of continually raise money in that sense. So we're looking for a strategic joint venture partner to earn into that project and help us fund it. And those conversations are underway, and we hope to be able to talk a lot more about that going forward. Tati, also in Botswana. This is, it's essentially a gold asset, and we are in the process of exploring that, and we're looking to go with our next steps there. New Ballarat Gold, people will understand the Victoria Goldfield story, I'm sure, very well from for historic exploration. I mean, dates back to the 1870s, but it's still an extremely prospective area, and we've got a huge license area with some fantastic prospectivity, and this is something that we want to talk a lot more about in terms of an IPO over the course of this year. We've got other assets. We've got Haneti, which is in Tanzania. We've got Silver Peak also in Canada, and that's going to be something that's going to come very much into focus. So you can see that there's a lot going on, and we have a lot of individual opportunities to add value. Now, what is the evidence that we actually do add value? I think that's very important. People want to know that the model works. Now, the business as it's currently oriented really sort of dates back to sort of 3 or 4 years. My predecessor, Paul Johnson, put the current business model in place, which is this idea of explore, develop, and crystallize. And since that time, the shareholder equity has increased, as you can see, 416% over that period. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's fine, but you've also raised a lot of money. And so what does that look like net of that dilution? Well, we've doubled your money over that period. So despite the fact that we've had to raise, companies, obviously junior resource companies do raise money, despite that, we've achieved great returns for shareholders. And I think, it's, as we often say, it's really not management's job to talk too much about the share price, but, quite frankly, since we're here, I think it is worth pointing out that when we look at the market cap of the company and you look at the shareholder equity of the business, it's more or less the same number. In other words, you buy a share today, you're paying only for the net assets of the company. You get all of the future opportunity, whether it be Saudi Arabia, uranium, Malopo Farms, Tati, you name it, all of the prospectivity, all of the future value that we're going to be creating for free. Because at the moment you're paying 1 times asset value. So look, it's the bottom of the market, we know that, and everybody here I think is going to be telling you the same thing. But putting some actual numbers on that, we're convinced that there is a very, very strong investment case. So why invest? I mean, I think we kind of rattled through this a little bit, and I appreciate that. There is a lot more to talk about here, and we would love to present more in person. We've got material that we can show you, and if you want to visit us at our booth, we can go through that. But look, what the message I want to leave you with is, my job is to make you money. We want to manage a capital light model where the main exploration costs are borne by the spun out vehicles, and where the parent company, the Power Metal Resources story, is the incubator, the junior merchant bank. So the objective for us is to make sure we have the right capital structure, that the business is properly capitalized, that we have enough cash for our activities, but that we have the right relationships and connections to be able to make these spin-out IPOs, to make these joint venture partnerships. Partly, some of that is happening this week. I mean, we're having some great meetings and some fantastic engagement with investors, but there's a lot we can talk about with companies here, and we're going from this meeting to speak to Rick about some other opportunities and some connections that we can make, and that's really the point of being in these kind of gatherings. So what I'm offering, and I think what we're trying to get across to people is that we have a proven concept, that we have a strong valuation case, we have the right commodities in the right geographies, we are minimizing your risk by diversifying the investment throughout the portfolio, but we are maximizing your potential returns by actively managing those assets while they are under our ownership. So that differentiates us from a passive investment model, for example, and it obviously differentiates us from a mining company who is taking a project from discovery all the way through to production. It's a very different model, and I think it's we're I think rather unique in terms of the gathering that we've got this week. And as I mentioned, we're the only London listed stock here. So, I do urge you, if you have the time, to come and visit with us, and we can tell you more. Now, one thing just to add is that coincident with the timing here was we've had an independent research report commissioned, which will talk about the valuation of the business, and will set out very neatly the business model and some of the things I've been talking about, the future catalysts for value creation, which we can provide to you, and we can scan your badge and send you the information, and that will tell you that. I mean, it will say the shares were strong buy, which I would agree with, but it will give a valuation of 3.3 pence, and that's versus 0.7 pence or 0.75 pence at the moment. So, on the basis of a valuation of the company done by this analyst, you're looking at 4.5 times your money just based on what the assets they think are worth. So, we think there's a very, very strong valuation case. We can happily provide that research and any other materials that will help you. But please do come and visit us. We're in booth 17. We've got, there are our contact details. We're putting out lots of information on the social media channels. And if you subscribe through our website, you'll be kept very much up to date with what we're doing. But I hope that's given you a reasonable overview of what we're trying to do and why we're here. And thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon and for your attention.
Well, thank you very much. We do have, you actually finished with 2 minutes to go. So does anyone have any questions? I'll ask a question. Do you have a line of credit available for new acquisitions?
Well, we're looking at various options in respect to capital structure, and I think one of the things I would say on that is, historically, we've raised money in the equity markets, and at this phase of the market, that capital is expensive. Okay, so I want to get across to people that we're not going to be looking to dilute your shareholding and raise money in equity. So we are looking at structures that will allow us to make quick decisions on businesses which sometimes require some cash. So we are having conversations about that, and we will definitely update the market on that in due course. But as it stands at the moment, the business is debt free.
Okay, yeah, okay, good.
I think gentleman there has a question. So there are 2 billion shares in issue, which I realise is quite a lot, but it's 100% free float. So we've got, Mr. Rule is a shareholder, as I mentioned. He's at 4.5% of the company. But most of the rest of the shareholders typically are UK private investors, and they tend to be aggregated through the retail platform. So you'll see, if I can maybe flick back up. So, Jarvis Investment Management, for example, that's not an individual shareholder. That's an aggregated group of private investors. So, what we're looking for, obviously, and all companies are looking for new investors, and we're hoping to attract high net worth individuals, over here who want to share the vision with us, and over time, hopefully, family offices and even some small institutions. So, but the shares are 100% free float.
I should just point out that nobody in this room calls him Mr. Rule.
Maybe that's because we're from London, perhaps.
I know. It takes it takes getting used to, doesn't it, to call people by that.
Yes, I think that's right. Exploration is when we have the asset, it's what we do. So, as I said, rather than just sort of passively hold a bunch of uranium licenses and wait for the uranium price to go up, as an investor might do, we're adding value to those assets while we have them. So, it'll come into the portfolio. We do that at that methodical, low-cost exploration. We add that value over that period. Then we move it to the next stage, and whether that's spin out, IPO, JV, whatever is that's our job as a management team to work out the best route for shareholders.